As a child, I always wanted to dance. We'd dance around the living room. We had classes in the Masonic Temple, and it would smell like beer when we came in the morning, and just use an old chair to hang on to, and had homemade outfits. It's nothing like it is these days. It was very bare minimum anything. I grew up in Staten Island, New York. I guess I started taking classes when I was about 8 or 9. And I used to ride my bike there. It was the Masonic Temple. It was on the top. My uncles had a bowling alley underneath it, so I would go down there afterwards and sit at the bar and eat peanuts. Sister who was an actress and model, and I always was jealous of her because she seemed, I was 3 years younger, and she seemed to always get the leading roles. I performed as a young woman in vaudeville when she was younger. She was in vaudeville with her father and uncle.
My parents are from Italy. So they're from the old country, and they come from Tarissimo, which is a little town halfway between Rome and the northern part of Italy. I have one natural brother and 4 stepbrothers. I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, in the Italian section, and everything we did there, we did in the streets. So we had to learn how to play baseball, football, and everything else in the street. I had a lot of fun as a child. I grew up in a very poor neighborhood, and so I needed to have a very good imagination. I started dancing after I had gone to drama school because my teacher had turned around and said, to me, I walked like I was a gorilla because I came from a very tough neighborhood, so I walked like that. And she thought I should take up fencing to have more grace when I walked on stage, but I couldn't find any fencing classes in Camden, so I took up some dance classes, and I thought that would. And then I became very interested in it and stayed with it for a long time.
My childhood was interesting because I wasn't in one place for very long. Both my parents were performers, and they would have to take me where they were performing. I went to Caracas, Venezuela. I lived in Portugal for a summer, I think. I learned Portuguese. This is all before I started school.
After college, I auditioned and made the first alternate for How to Succeed in Business. But then I met this guy when we were auditioning and everything in summer stock. His name was Tony, and we formed a dance team. My best time was with the dance team because we could do what we wanted to do. We choreographed our own numbers. We saw them in so many countries, all over dancing.
I started as an actor. I was an actor for many years. I did musicals and a lot of dramas. And I went to New York City, and I studied for a couple of more years. Got a job for my first job in what was called Summer Theater, and I met my wife there. We didn't like each other too much in the beginning, but time went by. We decided we should hook up and do a dance act. We were together for a while, then we got married, and we still went on the road, and we worked for another year or so, and then the baby came along.
When Jen came along, I still danced. I took her with me. She went to the rehearsals. She was very good. She slept in the costumes when I was in South America on tour and doing a TV show there. She just stayed in the dressing room in Miami when I was there. And Portugal, I took her. at 4 years old, she just fit in and went on stage with some of the bigger girls. I didn't even know she knew the dance, but she just went in and did it because she'd just been watching it.
Usually I would sleep in the dressing rooms while my mom was out performing, and the show girls and the show boys would kind of babysit me, take care of me, look after me. Had a lot of people around me all the time who just traveled, and it was very exciting. They decided not to push me to do anything because they both did that as a profession, and they didn't want me to have to go into what they were doing. So I just did it for fun. Basically, I loved to do it, and I would take lessons, and I didn't take it all that seriously. Being around a lot of people in the business, like my parents and my grandparents, I kind of knew what it took to be a dancer, and I didn't have enough drive at that time that I wanted to do it. So they didn't push me to do it. I just took my classes and enjoyed it and studied other things.
So our idea was to come back to Jersey and maybe mess around in Jersey for a while, and then go back to New York, get another job. But we ended up in the casinos. And then from the casinos, we started our own studio. I got a job as pit boss for the casinos since I had worked in Vegas. From there, we bought a house, and then Pam was teaching for other people, and she helped these teachers build up these studios, and after a while they would sell the studio to someone else, and Pam would always be the teacher. Finally one day I said, let's build our own studio, and I did. The studio was first designed as 2 rooms. They were split right down the middle. It was a room, you know, and then as the building began to come together, we kind of changed our minds and said it would be better to have one big room where you could do more things.
I started my own studio late 80s, 88, something like that, after teaching for these other people. Then I taught up in the school system for a while. So I had kind of a base to start with because I could take those students. And we borrowed the money to build the studio. Well, I found it easy to open a studio because I had my own building. I didn't have to rent or depend on a landlord raising my rent. I could be in the studio whenever I wanted, like 24 hours a day if I wanted. I didn't have to go, you know, to any hours. And it's right next to my home. It's part of my life.
So just out of college, I started teaching for my mom at the studio, and then after that, I moved to Poconos and I taught there, and then I started teaching in Pennsylvania, New Jersey after that. I taught dance because I could, I knew how, I was very qualified to do it, and then it just kind of hit me, hey, this is maybe what I should be doing. The kids here are my kids up until I had an actual kid, and they still are, but most people we have from like 5 to 18. And so we know them really, really well, and we see them every week, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week, especially when they get older. Regular teachers only see you, 1 year. Dance teacher is in your studio most of your life if you can continue, with your dancing. And I know a lot of girls that still keep in touch with me that are in college and tell me what they're doing. They're in this show, they're in that show, and it's really nice to have like an extended family.
I like to think that I know my students and I'm friendly with them and the parents, and I make it very homey here. I try not to be very strict. I don't believe in that kind of environment. I enjoy dancing with the little kids and pretending. It gets hard sometimes because the economy gets low, but by and large, parents will cut out other things, but they'll send their kids to dance.
Hopefully Jen will either take over our studio or start her own. She knows a lot of good dancers and people who can teach and help her with the studio. The real secret to success is if you want to hang in there and be persistent. Don't give up.
I don't like dealing with the business part of it so much, but I do occasionally, I help my mom with certain things, but more on the creative end, not really on the business end. I think that if I took it over, that, my husband would probably try to do more business stuff, so I wouldn't have all the headaches all the time with that stuff, and I could just focus on one thing. A lot of people do that. They have like a business part of it, takes care of the office, and then the more creative person does like any dance-related things. There's studios that are smaller than me, studios that are bigger than me. I can't speak for either one of them, but I can say that a lot of the bigger studios obviously have more teachers. You have more teachers, you're going through a lot of different people, and you're maybe not as connected as here, where it's pretty much been me, my mom, and my dad, with a couple people in and out. You go, through all of us in one way or the other. And some of the bigger studios, they have like, 9 or 10 teachers, which is good to get from different people, but then you're not maybe as close-knit of a family.
You're just a business person and want to own a dance studio. I don't think it'd be a good fit for you. I think you need to have a passion of dance. I think you need to understand dance. I mean, you try to be a psychologist, psychiatrist, and everything in one for dance, because you have to nurture them, but you have to be disciplinary like a teacher has to do, and you have to enjoy the kids.